Hey everyone, we are on our second to the last chapter, so this is exciting. Today we're talking about decision making, and really what we're going to do is take everything we've learned so far this semester, and it's going to culminate in how do we use this to make smart business decisions. So I really like this chapter. This won't be on the exam, but it may be useful for your project, and it may just be useful in life. So I think it's a good one to get on board with. All right, so first of all, we have here the steps of making a decision, whether it's a business decision or a decision in your personal life. They're good steps to go through. So we're going to go through them, and I'm going to use an example from when I worked at Oracle. And specifically, when I worked in mergers and acquisitions, we would buy a company and then we would integrate it, and we would bring all of the people over and make them Oracle employees and bring the systems over and stuff like that. So our decision, so first of all, step number one is define the decision task. What we wanted to see is, was there a way that we could integrate quicker? And so we were like, all right, well, what are ways we could integrate quicker? And specifically what we wanted to do is bring the employees over and make them Oracle employees quicker. The reasons were, we generally, once employees came over, there was better stickiness. They were less likely to leave. Also, we could, at that point, align the management chains, so you could have acquired company people reporting to Oracle managers, or vice versa. They would have access to all of our systems, and we had a lot of internal controls that were embedded in our systems, so we had better control once the employees were on our systems. So those were all of the reasons we wanted to do that. But our decision task was, how can we integrate the employees quicker? All right. So step two, identify alternative courses of action. All right. So one was, we could just do our integrations quicker. Usually we move the employees over when we took some sort of legal step, usually either a merger or an asset sale within subsidiaries. I'm trying not to make this too complicated, but that was normally when we would do it. We called it legal entity combination, or LEC. So we said, well, we could just do LEC quicker. That was one of our alternatives. Or we said, instead of doing the LEC quicker, we could just move the employees without doing the whole legal entity combination. Or we said we could bring the employees over and make them look like Oracle employees and feel like Oracle employees, but they would actually legally still be employees of the acquired company. Ultimately, we decided to pursue the third option, but I think I'm getting ahead of myself. So those were kind of our options that we were looking at. All right, so then collect relevant information and evaluate each alternative. Okay, so this is where I was getting ahead of myself. So then we started collecting information, and we said, well, can we just do the LECs faster? And there were reasons we couldn't. One of them was for some tax reasons. We had to be able to do our diligence before we legally combined entities, because there could be really serious tax implications if we did it incorrectly, or in a way that wasn't advantageous. We could end up paying additional tax or losing some tax benefits that we were getting. They're called net operating loss carry forwards. You'll learn about it in your tax class. Don't worry about it here. So we said, that's not a great idea. And then we said, well, we could just move the employees. We'll just move the employees ahead of the LEC. And that also had some implications, both from a tax perspective, because transferring employees from one subsidiary to another is, in many countries, a taxable event. Also, there were some real legal ramifications with that. Not so much here in the United States, but in Europe specifically, they have a lot of what are called workers' councils, which are kind of like unions. But anyway, you have to go through a whole consultation process before you can change anything about an employee's job, including who they actually work for. And if we ignored that process, that actually can be very expensive. Primarily in Europe. A few countries in Asia have the same issues, but Europe's really where it was. And then our third alternative was, what if we make them look like Oracle employees? So we're not changing their employment. And this was the one we liked the best. We said we could actually go through, and then we had a whole process where we'd make them contractors in our system, but that would give them access to our system without changing their legal employment. We're like, this one looks like a good idea. But we needed to, so that was our preferred action, but we needed to get more information to see if that would work. So this is where, because most of the problems were in Europe, this is where I said, well, why don't I go sit down with all of the HR and legal folks in Europe, as well as bring over some of the systems folks, and we can sort this out. And everyone said, oh my gosh, this is such an important project. That's a great idea. And so here I was flying off to Dublin, Ireland. And I also worked it out so I could bring some of my friends. We did a little side trip, but that's not what's important. What's important is we got the right people around the table, and we started working through what would this look like, what would we have to change in the system, what could we absolutely not do. And let me tell you, when you are trying to convince European employment lawyers to do something, anything with employees without going through the whole consultation process, you have got a battle on your hands. But I was up for it because I was getting a free trip to Dublin, Ireland. All right. So anyway, so we selected that as our preferred course of action. And then once we were all in agreement, here's what we could do, then we took it to upper management. So we took it to Oracle's chief of staff, basically our CEO's chief of staff. And we said, look, here's what we want to do. Here's where we can do it. And at that point, we analyzed and assessed the decision made. Okay, we've made a decision. We think this is how we can do it. Does it make sense? Sometimes you do this after the decision's been implemented and you say, is that a smart thing to do? Looking back, Monday morning quarterback, is that really what we wanted to do? And ultimately, we decided no, that wasn't what we wanted to do. And I'm gonna tell you why when we get to our next section where we talk about types of costs. All right, cliffhanger, see you then.